The classroom smelled of chalk and old sweat, the kind of smell that clung to faded dreams and hard-worn plastic chairs. 14-year-old Noah Akindala sat quietly in the back corner of the room, his head lowered, fingers fumbling with a roll of black duct tape. His once white sneakers, now gray and frayed, had split the soles. He pressed them together and wrapped the tape carefully around the sides. Each pass of tape felt like a stitch of survival. Every layer was another line in a story he wasn't ready to tell out loud. "Yo, look at this guy," someone snorted from the front row. It was Derek, the school's golden boy, captain of the football team, son of a popular local designer, and the self-declared king of Jide Owolabi Secondary School. Fixing his shoes like we're in a refugee camp. Derek laughed, loud enough for the whole class to hear. The room burst into cruel chuckles. Noah said nothing. He didn't look up. His cheeks burned, but his hands stayed steady. He knew better than to feed their fire. Miss Tolu, their teacher, looked up from the blackboard, but said nothing. She never did when Derek was involved. His father had donated half the books in the school library. Money could muffle all the wrong noises. Maybe ask your mummy to buy you new ones. Oh, wait. Derek grinned. That's right. She's too busy cleaning other people's toilets. That one hit too deep. Even Noah flinched. What Derek didn't know, or maybe didn't care about, was that Noah's mother, Mama Shade, worked 3 cleaning jobs just to afford the school fees. The shoes he wore were his only pair. They belonged to his late older brother, Ao, who died in a motorcycle accident the year before. Noah didn't cry. He hadn't cried since Ao's funeral, but he felt something stir inside him. Not sadness, not shame, something sharper, something like resolve. The final bell rang like a sigh of relief. As the students spilled into the dusty courtyard, Noah quietly packed his worn-out books into a plastic bag. He didn't own a backpack. His had ripped 2 months ago, and there was no money to replace it. Outside, Derek and his entourage leaned against the school gate, laughing and tossing a football around like royalty holding court. "Hey, shoe doctor," Derek called. "How much do you charge per foot?" Laughter exploded again. Noah walked past him without a word. But Derek wasn't done. He launched the football directly at him. It hit Noah square in the back. The silence that followed was heavier than the blow. Noah didn't turn, didn't flinch. He just picked up the ball, walked back, and handed it to Derek. "Here," he said simply. For a second, Derek seemed caught off guard. Then his eyes narrowed. "You think you're better than us?" he sneered. Noah looked him dead in the eyes for the first time. "No, I'm just not playing the same game." Then he walked away. The walk home was long, over 40 minutes on dusty roads with no sidewalks, past mechanic shops and food stalls. Noah's taped shoes slapped against the gravel like worn-out drums. At home, the one-bedroom flat smelled of detergent and tomatoes. His mother, Mama Shade, was bent over a basin of soaked laundry, her arms raw from scrubbing. "Welcome, my dear," she said, smiling through her fatigue. "Afternoon, Ma." Noah replied, hugging her from behind. She noticed the extra layer of duct tape. "Again?" she asked softly. Noah shrugged. "It'll hold." She nodded, her eyes wet but proud. "You always find a way." He didn't tell her about the bullying. She had enough weight on her back. She didn't need more. That evening, Noah rummaged through the old wooden box under his bed. He pulled out a tattered sketchbook. It had once belonged to his brother, Ao, a gifted fashion design student who dreamed of launching his own sneaker brand. Noah flipped through the pages, staring at the sharp lines, the fierce creativity that lived in Ao's hand. One page stopped him cold. Ao had scribbled, "Style isn't about money. It's about identity." Noah closed the book. Something inside him clicked. He grabbed an old cereal box, a utility blade thread, and a bent sewing needle. Then he began to build. It took him 4 nights. Noah used the remaining fabric from his late brother's torn shirts and the soles of a broken flip-flop to create something between a sneaker and a sandal. It was crude, but it was art, his art. When he wore them to school, heads turned. "What are those?" Derek barked, pointing like Noah was a street performer. But this time, Noah didn't walk away. "They're mine," he said, "designed and built from scratch." Derek cackled. You made your own shoes? What, is this a village fashion show? Noah grinned. Better than walking in someone else's shadow. That line hit harder than anyone expected. Even Derek was speechless for a moment. What Noah didn't know was that someone was watching. Miss Laura, the new fine arts teacher, had joined just a week ago. She was young, sharp, and quiet, but she had an eye for raw talent. After class, she stopped him. Are those yours? She asked, pointing to his shoes. Yes, Ma. You made them? He nodded. I want to see your process. Bring your materials tomorrow. Noah blinked. Why? She smiled. Because I think you're sitting on gold. The next day, Noah brought his sketchbook, cereal box templates, and patch tools. Miss Laura studied every detail with growing awe. Have you ever considered entering a youth design competition? She asked. Noah laughed bitterly. Those are for kids with real shoes. Real money. I'll handle the registration, she said. You just build. For the first time, Noah saw something new in an adult's eyes, belief. Every night, Noah worked by candlelight. His hands blistered, his eyes strained. But he crafted. 1 pair, then 2, then 5. He named each one based on emotions he couldn't say aloud. Resilience, grief, unseen, echo, rebirth. His designs weren't perfect, but they spoke. And Miss Laura? She photographed every one. Without telling him, she submitted his designs to the National Young Creators Showcase, a contest that featured the best under 18 fashion talents in the country. 2 weeks later, Noah was at school when he heard the announcement over the intercom. Noah A. Quintela reported to the principal's office immediately. He thought he was in trouble. Instead, he walked in to find Miss Laura, the principal, and a stranger in a sleek suit. The man extended a hand. My name is Tolu Bakare. I'm with House of Bakare Fashion Week. Noah stared, confused. You've been selected, the man said, smiling, as the youngest designer to ever feature at our Youth Runway event. Noah blinked. What? Miss Laura beamed. You're going to Lagos, Noah. Your shoes will walk the runway. News traveled faster than wildfire. Suddenly, the boy with duct-tape shoes was on school flyers, on posters, on morning announcements. The same kids who mock him were now asking, Can I get a pair? Derek? He stared dumbfounded as Noah walked to the school gates 2 weeks later wearing his newest design, a sleek, gold-accented sneaker titled Ascend. It was loud, unapologetic, unmistakably his. Hey, Noah, Derek muttered, trying to keep his voice steady. So, congrats. Noah turned. He smiled. Thanks. By the way, your laces are untied. Derek looked down instinctively. When he looked back up, Noah was already gone. Lagos was a different world. Noah had never been on a plane, and the ride from the airport to the fashion house felt like a dream. Skyscrapers glittered like stars trapped in concrete. Billboards screamed of brands he'd only seen in TV. Commercials. But it wasn't the city that overwhelmed him. It was the venue. House of Bakare was no school hall. It was an arena of style. Models. Cameras. Fabrics flown in from Milan. And in the center of it all, him. A boy from a one-bedroom flat, standing among giants. Miss Laura stayed close, acting as his mentor and makeshift manager. She whispered when he froze, You deserve this. Don't shrink. Noah nodded, but his heart raced. He wasn't the only youth selected. There were 9 other finalists, teens from prestigious design academies, international schools, even one from South Africa. They arrived with full teams, mood boards, and custom mannequins. Noah came with cereal templates, patched shoes, and a borrowed smartphone. One of the other designers, a girl named Maya, noticed. You're the duct tape boy, right? She asked, not unkindly. Noah smiled. That's me. She looked at his sketches. You have a voice. Raw. Unfiltered. Is that a compliment? It's a warning, she said with a grin. You're the wild card. For the next 2 weeks, the finalists were put through intense boot camps. Sewing challenges, media training, design critiques. Noah failed miserably at the press interviews. He stumbled, fumbled, and froze in front of cameras. But on the workbench, he shone. While others relied on imported leather, Noah created out of scraps. He molded soles from shredded tires, used melted bottle caps as lace rings, wove his mother's old wrappers into fabric panels. He called his collection Rooted Rising. Every shoe told a story of grit, and while the judges didn't always say it, he could see the respect forming behind their silence. Late one night, after a long design session, Noah's phone rang. It was Mama Shade. "I saw your picture in the newspaper," she said, barely holding back tears. "They're calling you Nigeria's next big designer." Noah smiled, biting his lip. "I just hope Ao's proud," he whispered. There was a pause. "He's dancing in heaven," she said. "I know it." 3 nights before the showcase, disaster struck. Noah walked into the studio and found his final pair, Rebirth, ripped apart. The seams were undone. The heel snapped. The laces cut. Sabotage. And he had a good idea who did it. In the far corner, one of the international students, Kyle, a spoiled designer from the UK, looked up from his table with a smirk that said, "Prove it." Miss Laura was furious, but there was no camera footage. No proof. Noah's hands trembled. "I'll start again," he said. "But there's no time," Miss Laura said. "Then I'll finish it in less." Noah didn't sleep that night. He rebuilt Rebirth from memory using curtain fabric, rubber tubing, and a zipper from his own pants. The design was rougher now, more jagged. But it worked. It looked like pain. It looked like someone fighting to survive. And that, Noah thought, made it perfect. The night of the event arrived. Backstage, the energy buzzed with nerves and hairspray. Models strutted. Designers panicked. Cameras clicked like thunder. Noah stood quietly in a corner, watching the crowd form beyond the velvet curtains. And then he saw him. Derek, front row, designer sunglasses. Beside his father, the famous fashion mogul, who'd sponsored part of the event. Miss Laura leaned in. "Did you know?" Noah nodded slowly. "It's his father's Runway." Derek hadn't come to support. He'd come to watch him fall. Noah's models stepped out, one by one, wearing the 5-piece collection. The crowd whispered at first, then gasped. By the 3rd shoe, the applause started. By the 4th, people stood. When Rebirth hit the runway, the lights dimmed, and a spotlight followed the shoes every step. Raw, red, scarred, like a wound that learned how to heal. The judges whispered to each other. Phones rose in unison. Even Derek removed his sunglasses, jaw tight. Noah stood backstage, hands clenched, heart pounding. And then, a standing ovation. The judges took the stage. One by one, they spoke of innovation, authenticity, and a voice that refuses to be ignored. Then came the envelope. And the winner of the 2025 Youth Design Showcase is... Pause. Noah closed his eyes. Noah Kintola. Gasps. Cheers. Applause. Tears welled up in his eyes as he stepped into the spotlight. They placed the trophy in his hands. He looked out at the crowd. Derek was still seated. His father clapped awkwardly. Noah raised the trophy, not with pride, but with purpose. He had climbed from the back of a classroom to the front page of a legacy. After the show, a reporter rushed to him. "You've become a national sensation. From homemade shoes to a runway king. What's your message to youth watching?" Noah paused. He looked into the camera. "My name is Noah Kintola. I come from a one-room house. My shoes were once held together by duct tape." He held up the winning pair. "This is what happens when you stop waiting for the world to give you permission. Build anyway." The morning after the showcase, Noah's name was everywhere, from tape to triumph. The boy who built his destiny. Noah Kintola, Lagos runway revelation. Instagram exploded with videos of his speech. TikTok was flooded with teens showing off DIY shoes, tagging at hashtag Noah Inspired. Even fashion blogs from Paris and Milan reposted clips of Rebirth, calling it a design born from the soul, not the studio. Noah sat in his hotel room, stunned, watching his name scroll across TV screens. From the streets of Samalu to global screens. Back in school, silence greeted Noah's return. The very classmates who once mocked him avoided eye contact. Some tried to start conversations. Others hovered awkwardly. But Derek? He was nowhere to be seen. Rumor had it that his father had berated him publicly at the event, not because Noah won, but because Derek had failed to recognize genius when it stood beside him. Noah didn't smile at the thought. He pitied him, because pride blinded more than poverty ever could. Derek didn't return to school the next week, nor the week after. One morning, Miss Tolu announced he had transferred to a school abroad, for better exposure, but even she couldn't hide the hint of shame in her voice. Noah looked at Derek's empty seat and let out a quiet breath. The power had shifted. By the third week, fashion houses were calling, one from Cape Town, another from Berlin, a mentorship offer from Nike's Africa team. But the one that stood out was from AO Streetwear, a small but fast-rising Nigerian fashion house that specialized in urban, grassroots-inspired wear. Their founder, Chidi Nwokedi, was an industry rebel who reminded Noah of his late brother. When they met, Chidi asked only one question: "Why do you design?" Noah replied without hesitation: "Because sometimes the world needs to wear pain to finally see it." Chidi grinned. "Welcome aboard." Noah didn't move to a fancy apartment in Lekki. He stayed in Samalu. But this time, he walked those dusty roads in shoes he designed, with kids run behind him shouting, "Designer Noah, make my own." He visited his old school, donating sewing machines, sketchbooks, and startup kits for creative students. He told the principal, "There are more like me here. You just never looked." Miss Laura wiped a tear from her cheek. One evening, Noah came home to find Mama Shade staring at something on the kitchen table. A package. Inside, a brand new industrial sewing machine, a letter from Chidi, and a golden boss card that read, "To the woman who raised resilience." Mama Shade didn't say a word. She just hugged her son tighter than she ever had. With Chidi's help, Noah launched a sub-brand under AO Streetwear. Rebirthed by Noah, every shoe came with a handwritten note. Each pair was named after struggle: ashes, famine, hustle, alone, and faith. Within a month, the first collection sold out. Celebrities posted unboxing videos. Fashion Week organizers in Ghana and Rwanda reached out, but Noah kept his team small. Miss Laura became head of creative development, and Mama Shade, she ran operations from their small living room. Then it came. An invitation to Paris Fashion Week Youth Edition. All expenses paid. Main stage. Front row seats filled with fashion royalty. Noah held the letter in shaking hands. 2 months ago, he'd been ridiculed for fixing his shoes with tape. Now, Paris wanted a story on their runway. The day before Noah left for Paris, he received an unexpected DM. "Derek, congratulations. I didn't see it then, but you proved me wrong. I hope you keep rising. Respect." Noah stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back, "Thanks. Everyone's walking a journey. I just chose to fix my soles before I sold my soul. No hate, no pride, just truth." Noah's final design for Paris was called Eclipse, a shoe made of white and black panels, symbolizing darkness giving way to light. On the inside sole, in tiny lettering, was a quote from AO's sketchbook. "Style isn't about money. It's about identity." As the lights dimmed and his design stepped onto the runway in Paris, Noah stood backstage, not as a boy with broken shoes, but as a name the world would never forget. The plane touched down in Paris beneath a pink-orange sunrise. Noah looked out the window, his breath fogging the glass. He'd never seen anything like it. The Eiffel Tower peaked in the distance like a promise. A convoy picked them up. Miss Laura, Chidi, and 2 local models from Lagos flown in for the showcase. The car interior was lined with velvet. Chidi turned to Noah, grinning. "Still feel like an imposter?" Noah chuckled nervously. "Every second." Chidi leaned back. "Good. Means your humility's intact. But don't forget, you earned this." The press events were surreal. Noah sat at a round table with designers from Seoul, Madrid, Tokyo, and Rio. Each wore perfectly tailored blazers and oozed practiced charm. Noah wore one of his brother's reworked jackets. Oversized, frayed edges, raw. But when he spoke, people listened. Because he didn't just talk about fashion. He talked about life. about how hunger shaped imagination, about how broken things taught him to build. One journalist from Vogue Paris whispered to another, "He's not just designing shoes, he's designing language." The runway at Paletta Tokyo was a lit, spiraling path, a helix of light and shadow. Noah's collection walked last. His 5-piece set was called From Dust. Each shoe told a story of struggle to success. Cracked ground, a beige suede sneaker with stitched, ruptured seams. Monsoon, a rain-resistant design with waterproof threads made from nylon sacks. Cradle, inspired by his mother's laundry ropes. Echo, a minimalist design shaped like footsteps in sand. Eclipse, black and white, sorrow and triumph. As the final model stepped out wearing Eclipse, the lights dimmed and the crowd fell silent. Then came the applause. Then the standing ovation. Noah stood backstage, trembling, not from fear, but from release. After the show, Noah stepped into the quiet of his Paris hotel balcony. The city buzzed below, but he stared up at the stars. He whispered to the sky, "We made it, bro." And for a second, just a second, he felt a presence. A warm breeze brushed his face. Maybe it was coincidence. Or maybe A.O. had front row seats all along. The next morning, Miss Laura handed Noah a sealed envelope. "What's this?" he asked. She smiled softly. "My resignation letter." "What? Why?" "To join your company. Head of Global Youth Design Education. I want to build more kids like you." Noah's eyes widened. "We'll have to cut my salary." She laughed. "You don't even have one yet." They shook hands, then hugged. Noah returned home to cheers at the airport. Media crews swarmed. Children waved flags. At his old school, his worn-out chair was turned into a mini museum. On it was a plaque, "Where Rebirth was born." Noah walked past it and found his old classroom. Derek's seat still sat empty. But Noah didn't feel bitterness, just completion. It was meant to be a quiet Tuesday, until 3 black SUVs rolled into Samalu. Noah and Mama Shade stood frozen as a tall man in traditional attire stepped out. It was the president of Nigeria. He approached Noah and held out a shoe. "Would you autograph this?" he asked. The crowd gasped. Noah stared, stunned. "Sir, you've inspired millions. And I want you to head a new national project, empowering creative youth from the streets to the runway." Mama Shade wept on the porch. Noah signed the shoe. And the nation signed its future to someone who once stitched shoes with duct tape. Noah visited A.O.'s grave that weekend. He placed a pair of Eclipse shoes at the headstone. On a small note, he wrote, "You dreamed it first. I just wore it loud." As he stood there, a little boy passed, barefoot and dirty. Noah crouched down. "Where are your shoes?" The boy shrugged. "I fix them, but they break again." Noah took off his own pair and handed them to the boy. "Then were mine." Months later, Noah opened a creative center called the Rebirth Academy. It wasn't a school. It was a lab. Sewing machines, recycled materials, mentors, and, most importantly, no uniforms. He told the first class of students, "Style is how you fight back without raising your voice. Now, go make noise with your hands." A year later, Noah stood backstage at New York Fashion Week. Behind him, his mother now had a finance. Beside him, Miss Laura, with a clipboard and 17 interns. Ahead of him, a sea of lights. One reporter asked, "How do you go from being laughed at to being legendary?" Noah smiled. "You don't wait for the world to open a door. You build your own, even if the only materials you have are duct tape and dreams." The camera flashed, and the world watched the boy from Samla walk into history, one step at a time. Noah stood at the edge of the stage in New York, staring into the ocean of light and silence. Then the music swelled. One by one, his models emerged, each wearing a design that told a story of the forgotten, the unseen, the mocked, and the makers. But unlike past shows, this one was different. He didn't design the shoes alone. Each pair had been co-created with one of his students from the Rebirth Academy. Kids who, like him, had once been laughed at for dreaming beyond their street corners. As the final model reached the end of the runway, something unexpected happened. The lights dimmed, And Noah himself walked out, not in a suit, not in luxury, but in his original duct-tape sneakers, the very ones he wore when Derek mocked him in class. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Reporters froze. Photographers raised their cameras. He walked slow, proud, silent. The lights followed his every step. Each echo of his feet whispered a reminder to the world. This is where it started. When he reached the center of the runway, he paused. He raised his hand. In it, he held up one of his brother Ao's old sketches, now framed in gold. Then he spoke, not to the audience, not to the cameras, but directly into the mic as though he were speaking to the child version of himself. To the boy who thought being poor meant being invisible. You were never invisible. You were becoming. To everyone who's ever been laughed at for how they walk, let them laugh. Because one day, you'll walk into rooms they never imagined. And to the kids fixing shoes with duct tape right now, keep fixing. Because sometimes the path to greatness isn't paved with gold, it's stitched with grit. The room exploded in applause. But Noah didn't move. He just smiled. Because he wasn't walking for validation anymore. He was walking for the millions of underdogs still in the dark, showing them the path, one imperfect step at a time. That night, as the world watched, a boy who once walked alone in patched shoes took his final bow on the biggest runway of all. Not for fame, not for fashion, but for freedom.